Hi all, it's Eamon from the committee here. Apologies for the late start to this event. Had some technical problems connecting into the Netherlands, and we're just working to get Carolien connected in. In the meantime, I didn't want to sort of have you all hanging around in a waiting room. So what I thought I might do is just kick off by giving you a bit of a background and the context for why the Committee for Sydney is keen to have Carolyn speak. And as part of that, to just really, give you the context for the conversation. So for people's context, IAmsterdam, or the rebranding of Amsterdam, is a really fascinating story. And it's been kind of one of the foundational texts for the committee when we've been thinking about our Sydney Global project, the project around the rebranding of Sydney. And that's fundamentally because Amsterdam did a really good job. They had a reputation as a city that was great for sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but maybe not the sort of place that you wanted to invest or to go and study, or to see a rich cultural heritage, despite the fact that Amsterdam is undoubtedly all of those things. It is a great place to invest, a great place to study, a great place to see cultural richness. Of course, not as good as Sydney in any of those categories, but pretty damn good. We'll give it the Northern Hemisphere. It can keep that. And what the IAmsterdam brand, although, most people kind of reflect on that brand because they put, a very large logo in the main square, that IAmsterdam, and everybody gets photos. I've got photos in front of that brand, but actually sitting underneath it was a really rich storytelling project around Amsterdam's role as the city of commerce. Its long kind of history as the center of mercantilism, threads of capitalism were essentially founded in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, and this idea of the kind of proto-capitalist world coming out of feudalism really sort of sprung from this area. So they had this rich history that they could draw on when it came to telling the story of their city. And now hello, Carolyn, how are you?
My colleague helped me out. Nathan is in the call as well. So I'm
Hello. It's so good to see you. I apologize. I've been essentially I don't know if this will translate, but I've been vamping. I've basically been um talking about why we had invited you as we got you online. But you're here now. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Antonia to introduce you and give context. We've got about 50 people coming to the conversation. Over to you, Antonia.
Welcome to the inaugural session of the Sydney Global webinar series. This is part of our recently launched Sydney Global program, which aims to reframe and elevate the story of our city on the world stage. We'll be hearing insights from various international experts and city leaders on shaping, managing, and communicating the narratives of great global cities. Today, we are delighted to be joined by Carolien Gehrels, who is dialing in from the early hours in the Netherlands to share the Amsterdam story and her reflections on their global brand journey. Before formally introducing Carolien, I'd like to acknowledge and thank our partners whose support helps make conversations like this possible. In particular, I would like to thank our Sydney Global program partners, Airbnb, Business Events Sydney, the City of Sydney, the New South Wales Department of Creative Industries, Tourism, Hospitality and Sport, the Parks, and the University of Sydney. So for those who don't know, Carolien is the Global Director of Placemaking at Arcadis with over 30 years of experience in city leadership, urban development and sustainability. She previously served as Vice Mayor of Amsterdam, where she led major initiatives in economic development, culture and infrastructure. At Arcadis, she drives global strategies for creating vibrant and resilient cities. Carolien serves on several advisory boards in the Netherlands and is also a published author, having co-authored the book What We Want Has Never Been Done, The Power of an Integrated Spatial Approach, published back in March 2021. As you listen along this afternoon, I encourage you to put any questions you may have in the chat, as my colleague Eamon, who you met, will be speaking to Carolien later in the session, and we'll draw on your questions during the discussion. Without further ado, pass the virtual mic over to you. Welcome.
Yes, there we go. There we see the Rijksmuseum, the main museum in Amsterdam, on the Museum Square. But first of all, thanks for inviting me. I've been to Sydney in the summer of 2019, and I've been meeting a couple of the participants, I assume, and I was really impressed by your city and by your country because, well, it's far, far away. It's down under, but I was really impressed by the progress you have made as well since 2019 with all the branding reports, etc. And I love to tell the story of the IAmsterdam branding. You see the sign here, and I will tell you the story. Okay, this is in fact the core of my story. When you talk about city marketing and city branding, you talk about the values of a city and the vision for the future. And that's the top of this pyramid. And when you have to define your values, you have to be aware of the governance systems. Is it a public-led city or more privately led? Is it a formal or informal city? Is it top-down? For example, in Amsterdam, it's very bottom-up. It's the power of the entrepreneurs that drive the city. It's really a city of citizens. But for example, in Rotterdam, it's more family-driven, like it is in a couple of Italian cities as well. So you have to define your values. And for Amsterdam, we said it's about creativity, it's about innovation, and it's about the spirit of commerce. And in fact, that's what you see everywhere. And you go, when you do a good city marketing story and a good narrative through this pyramid, like in a roller coaster. So you have also to analyze the systems of the city, because how is your city functioning? Is it good with mobility? Is the housing efficient? How are the energy systems, water systems? But also culture is a system. Do you have schools for young children where they educate you in culture? Do you have museums? Do you have professional education systems where you can educate your new artists and performers? So the systems of the city needs to function, otherwise the city marketing is in fact not a true story. And the bottom of the pyramid, the fundament is the people, the raw materials, the data. This is in fact the core of our advice when we started with the IAmsterdam campaign. It was in 2002 that the mayor of Amsterdam had a tender, and there were participating about 7 ad companies. And I won the competition because I said, a city is not a chocolate bar. And when you do some product marketing or shampoo or chocolate bars, you can easily define your products. But a city is always a city of citizens. It's not a chocolate bar. It's the city itself, with in Amsterdam about 1 million inhabitants who are owning the brand, and that makes it very complex. And when you talk about brands and profiles, you need to be aware of where you want to be in this triangle. Is it more on the content side? A lot of cities are branding themselves on the content side and say, for example, we are a residential city, or we are a cultural city, or we are the capital of photography. And I think that's very vulnerable, because that is different for every citizen. Every resident has their own story about the city they really love and where they are in. So you can do a kind of process brand, and the IAmsterdam brand is more a process brand because it's a kind of yin and yang. I am a part of Amsterdam, and Amsterdam is a part of me. But that is different for me than, for example, for my colleagues, or for my children, or for my partner, or for my family. So the IAmsterdam is really something you can live, because it's your own brand. And well, when we talk about Amsterdam, we said the values are creativity, innovation, spirit of commerce, because I think about 90 till 95% recognizes that. And then when you have defined your brand, and we can come to the next slide, then it's about the brand carriers. And here, I hope the movie will work, Antonia. You can, yes, the YouTube movie, it's 1 minute. and there you see all different kind of Amsterdam people, like Spinoza, like Anne Frank, like Rembrandt, like Johan Cruyff, carrying the brand of Amsterdam. And then you see the story in real life that everyone has a specific angle, but we are all proud of Amsterdam. And when you talk about values, I talked about creativity, innovation, and spirit of commerce. But at the end of the day, we are very proud of our residents, and Spinoza is one of the most famous ones. He is born in the city of Amsterdam. He was a philosopher in the 16th, 17th century. And he always said the purpose of the city is freedom. So at the end of the day, people will really be free, and then they feel responsible as well. So I put this statue in front of City Hall. And another philosopher is from Italy. It's Ambrogio Lorenzetti. And he said, in a well-governed city where arts and culture are flourishing, the people are happier. And that's because this is City Hall in Siena. And here you see the frescoes of Ambrogio Lorenzetti from the 14th century. And here he said, for example, when you talk about the systems of the city, it's very important that politics are there, but that justice is above politics. And then the city will flourish. So next slide. Because then I go to governance and investment power. You saw the city of Paris. I'm sure that you were all aware of the wonderful Olympic Games. You hosted them in 2000. Paris hosted the Games in 2024. And here you see that the brand of Paris was governed by the city, but also the state of Paris, but also its inhabitants. And I will elaborate a little bit on that. Next slide. Here you see the city of London. Well, when you see big metropolitan areas like London and Paris, you see there are endless amount of challenges to govern a healthy and prosperous city. Yeah, next slide is the city of Amsterdam. And this is what I did as a vice mayor, because we said, okay, we want to be a creative city, and innovation is important, spirit of commerce. And that means that we have to invest into policy that really is the fundament for that brand values. So we created a policy and investment agenda. We created new events. We created new festivals. And we invested a lot in arts and culture by investing in about 30 museums. So we invested in renovation of the Modern Art Museum, in the Amsterdam Light Festival, because in the winter we have not a peak, but a valley in the numbers of visitors and tourists in Amsterdam. So we said in December and January, when it's dark, at the end of the afternoon, we need a light festival, and that attracts now about 1 million visitors in the lower season. So that's very good for our entrepreneurs and our hotels. We created new musea on the other side of the river. I know Sydney has a lot of water as well, with a lot of ferries. So maybe when you want to spread tourism, and not only around your beautiful bridge or around the Opera of Sydney, you can build new cultural institutions at the other side of the rivers, or maybe on other beaches. So we had a policy to spread tourism as well, and to invest in museums and festivals, not in the city center, but in the outskirts of the town. So next slide. And then collaboration is key. As I said, governance and investment power. We had the opportunity to attract a lot of businesses to Amsterdam, and they also invested in the brand. That were the financial institutions like ABN AMRO, Rabobank, but also the factories and the important brands of Amsterdam. For example, Heineken is a typical Amsterdam brand. Our Royal Dutch Airlines, KLM, is a typical Amsterdam brand. And they invested as businesses in our brands as well. We have a lot of diamond entrepreneurs. Kazan, for example, they invested a lot. So that is all brought together in one institution that was called Amsterdam and Partners. And this organogram we always called the apple pie. So we had the businesses, we had the region. So it's not only the city of Amsterdam, it's about the municipalities around Amsterdam as well, 32. And I know in Sydney you have about 84 neighborhoods. It's very important that you involve them all. And you have to involve all departments of the local governments and governmental partners. So that's the collaboration within the triple helix. So public companies, private companies, and also science, arts, and culture, because our universities are very important for the younger people. We attract about 100,000 students a year, so 10% of our population is between 18 and 28 years old, and that makes that our population is very vibrant. That's important as well. And last but not least, we had twin relationships with other cities. Here we signed a contract with the city of New York because 400 years ago, Amsterdam people invented New York. It was called New Amsterdam at that time, but unfortunately we sold New York to the British, and then it was called New York, and we got Suriname back. I'm not sure if it was a great deal, but at least it's a wonderful city. So we feel a lot of shared DNA with New York, and that's the reason why we signed that contract. So next slide. And then when we talk about the pyramid, systems and resources are very important. Here you see the High Line in New York, and in Amsterdam as well. We put a lot of effort in greening our city. We have a very green city. We try to have as much trees as we have residents. That's not that easy, but we invest a lot in that to make the city more green and to be protected for example, heat stress. Next one. When you want to convert your brand into the physical space, we call it brandscaping. So how do you use space as an expression of your identity? And I gave the example of the statue from Spinoza. I gave the example of arts and culture. But you can also connect with the identity of the surroundings of your area. So next slide. And I think that is what they did in Paris very well during the Olympic Games. So on the next slide, you see the city of Rotterdam. This is a new museum, and here is a master plan, and it's not only the needed things, but also the desires of the users. And one of the desires always is that you have towers and possibilities to look over your city. And here on top of this old building, you see a new kind of staircase made by a Chinese staircase, and you can look all over the city from this beautiful new artwork on the rooftop of a new museum about migration. And that's also a way of living the brand. This is an example of Rotterdam, the city about 80 kilometers. And this is a wonderful example as well, also in Rotterdam. Here you can do some surfing in the heart of the city center. And when you have a lot of water, like you have in Sydney as well, you can create these kind of sport places to make it very enjoyable for your young residents, but also for your visitors. Next slide. And here you see the city of Amsterdam, because we have a wonderful city, but also with huge history. For example, during the war, we had a lot of residents who are Jewish. And here we see a monument for all the people that didn't survive the war. We have a Holocaust museum as well to educate the younger people in that difficult part of our history as well. And I think it's important that you have the beautiful parts of your history, but that you also give attention to the difficult parts. And that's well, what we did last year's very intensively, and it's highly appreciated all over the world. I think in Germany you see the same examples in Berlin with the Holocaust monument. So we are also open about the very difficult parts of our history as well. Next slide. And when you want to contribute to your experience, I explained that it's very important that you have beautiful parts. And here you see the Adam Tower. It used to be the global headquarters of the Royal Dutch Shell Oil Company, but now it's a hotel, it's a nightclub, it's a restaurant, it's a turning restaurant, and there's a swing on the rooftop, and that's very attractive because there you overlook the whole city as well. It's one of the most visited attractions in the cities these days. It's there for 10 years now. It's there since 2015, I assume. Next one. And here we have the city of Rotterdam. This is a beautiful example as well. It's a museum depot. So all the artworks that are stored are in this kind of big building. It's like a mirror. And again, on the rooftop, there's a restaurant, and it's very attractive as well. But also tourism has a flip side. You can stimulate it, you can direct it, so you have a kind of choreography of your city. You can orchestrate the squares, the water, the high-rise buildings. But on the next slide, you see that it's very important that you have future-proof tourism as well. Well, this is Sydney with a beautiful Pier 1 hotel. But when you attract a lot of people, you have, a kind of battle for space. And then you face it like a glass ceiling. Next slide. Because then simply you have over-tourism. Here we see the city of Venice, where the residents were complaining about too much tourists. You see Petra in Jordania, you see too much people in a beautiful monument, and then you get a lot of pressure on your space, and you get a downside. Next one. And it's happening everywhere. And I'm not hoping for Sydney that you face too much tourism, but then the question is how to educate your tourists as well, how to keep your public space green and healthy and a pleasant area. Next one. Because then you need to be aware of the possibilities to organize your crowds. You can do that on airports, you can do that by queuing, you can do that by organizing. Next one. And you can do it by orchestration. I mentioned the example of the Amsterdam Light Festival. That's a way of trying to get more tourists in winter and not only in spring or in summer. But you can also use smart technology to spread tourism, as I said, not only in the city center, but also in the outskirts of the town. You can make the residents, but also the tourists, very aware of the fact that they are responsible. I always say tourists are temporary residents, and in fact, residents are also temporary tourists when they really love their city. So next slide. And I say, okay, it's very important that you seduce the people to contribute to your city and to create valuable citizenship, that you encourage citizens to contribute to the city by keeping it clean, by be wearing and behaving very good, and maybe by systems like pay as you like, appreciate what you see, and feel responsible for it. And that's contribution. I don't talk about tax anymore, I talk about contribution, because I think it's important that people contribute to your city. And then indeed, Antonia, that is the last slide. Arcadis is there to improve quality of life. And now you can stop sharing, because I have a couple of slides, but this is more about the vision of the Netherlands. So thank you for hosting this webinar, and I think it's good to give the floor to all the participants to ask some questions.
Well, thank you so much. That's such a fantastic run through the work. The transformative work you did in Amsterdam previously, but I suppose I obviously heard you speak a couple of years ago in Sydney. You know, the evolution of the thinking and the change that we're seeing even since COVID is really, really valuable to hear. So first, can I just say thank you so much for joining us? And I appreciate it's very early in the morning there. So a double thank you for that one. As you said, folks that are online, if you would like to ask a question, you can pop it into the Q&A function in the box down there, and I will get to those questions. It's always hard for the first person to put the question, so luckily I've got heaps. But why don't I start with, you mentioned, you know, putting the brand into practice, the policy work that you needed to invest in, programs, investment attraction to support the brand values, I suppose, for Amsterdam. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Can you tell me, you know, maybe some specific examples of what that looked like? And were you able to convince government to spend new money, or was that just taking existing funding and changing the way that you funded, or changing the things you funded?
Well, thank you for your questions. I think they are great because attracting new investments is very important. And we started a specific program called Amsterdam in Business. It was a group of public people paid by the city of Amsterdam to attract new companies. And there we focused on specific areas. For example, we focused on the creative industries. Ad company, game companies, etc., because of our young population. And we in Amsterdam have very fast internet. So we have the infrastructure for ad companies, etc. And that is the reason why there's a whole ecosystem of creative industries also in music. For example, we do all the music for soccer, the FIFA, the UEFA, the World Championships, the Champions League, etc., etc. We do all the ads for Puma, for Adidas, for Nike, for the big brands in the world, because we have the creative industry as a kind of ecosystem. We focused on life sciences because we think with the aging population worldwide, life sciences are very important, and we have about 2-3 big hospitals and medical universities in the area, so life sciences was very important. The food industry is very important. Well, we have a big history in the agricultural economy as well. Yeah. We produce a lot of seed in the world for example, tomatoes, etc. And a kilogram of tomato seed is more expensive than a kilo of gold, pure gold. Really? That's really amazing.
So you mean to tell me I've been throwing out this really valuable resource when the tomatoes?
Yeah. Because when you grow the tomatoes, you have a big opportunity to produce food. And we have a very famous green university in Wageningen that's close to Amsterdam as well. So we focused on specific areas, and when you have a kind of ecosystem, it's very attractive for foreign companies to be part of it. And then we invested a lot in universities. I started a university called the Amsterdam Metropolitan Solutions University, and there was a combination of the technical university in the southern part of the Netherlands, the Green University, and MIT from Boston. So we always try to connect with other countries, and we put for 10 years new investment in it, about 50 million euros. So we specifically put a lot of money in new investments at that time.
Mm-hmm. And so going to the end of the other end of the process, that's the inputs. How did you measure the impact? Were you able to articulate economic impacts? Were you able to talk about kind of changes in perceptions from locals, from global citizens? What were the types of impact measurements you were using?
Well, I saw you in Sydney did a lot of research as well, and we have comparable research with a lot of numbers. Where are the tourists coming from? what do they spend? How much do they spend? 25% of our tourists is from the US, and they spend about 150 euros a day. So they are big spenders. So it's important to do your marketing in the US as well, because they love arts and culture. So they, in fact, are part of our ecosystem as well, because they buy a lot of tickets for museums, etc. So it's very important for the business case of our arts and culture sector that we have them as well. Also for our public transport systems. And we do some, we do a lot of digital research, quantity surveys, but also quality surveys. And we, of course, in politics, we talk a lot about it and what kind of tourists we want to have. Because, as I said, the brand and the marketing was so successful that we suffered from over-tourism, too much tourists, residents complaining. And now we try to do programs that, tourists know how to behave themselves as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the compact between the visitor and the local, that over-tourism challenge, that is an interesting one. I have one more question because the questions are coming in from the audience. You gave a really good slide, the triple helix, the governance structure. I think one of the key challenges and opportunities for Sydney in driving brand narrative and storytelling change is a really complex web of stakeholders with lots of different perspectives. Any tips, any advice on how you get all of those different groups who all have, are often at war with each other or disagree with each other, not literally at war, but, are fighting each other for funding, for attention. How did you manage to get them all to collaborate and sort of agree that growing the pie was better than trying to get a larger slice of the pie for themselves?
Yeah, that's an amazing question as well. Well, first of all, I think in Sydney it's exactly the same. People really love their own city. People love Amsterdam. They feel part of Amsterdam. So I think it's so important that you always underline that. And Amsterdam for me is different than for you, but we both love Amsterdam and we have things in common. And it's so important that you find the common ground in your core values. As I said, in Amsterdam, it's creativity, it's innovation and spirit of commerce. So that are the key core values which are giving you the opportunity to really live the brand. And because when you challenge people to be creative, to be innovative, to have spirit of commerce, they will come up with the best of themselves. So that is one. Two, when you want to have all the people working on the same brand, it's good to define certain moments in the future. So when we set the brand in 2004, we planned a big festival 10 years later to celebrate 400 years of canals. And at that time, all the museums were open again. We added extra money for that festival, 400 years of canals. And we asked all the companies, all the institutions, all the governments to give some extra for that event. It took us 10 years to organize it, but then in 2013, everyone was part of the program and gave the best of themselves. And I think that is what you did during the Olympic Games in 2000. And you really was prepared. Everyone was there and keen on to give the best of themselves for the city. And I think now for Sydney, it's very important to define a moment like that in the future and to challenge everyone in the city to give the best of themselves. Maybe it can be 2032 when it's in Brisbane. I think Australia is far, far away. People love the Olympic Games. They will come to Australia for more than a week because it's far, far away. And Sydney can benefit from that a lot, I assume, because Sydney is the strongest brand in Australia, in my opinion. And I think research is underlining that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fascinating kind of both an opportunity, but also a bit of a burning platform. A worry for us is for, in 5 years' time, basically, or 7 years' time, no one will be focused on Sydney. They'll be focused on Brisbane. So how do we make sure that we've built as much of a clear kind of description of Sydney before that moment hits?
Yeah, because I think, to be honest, that is an internal perspective. From an Australian perspective, you're totally right. But when you're at the other part of the world, in the US, in Europe, Sydney is very close to Brisbane. When I was in Sydney, I took the plane to Brisbane. It took me only 1 hour. And I think you have about 30 planes a day, or maybe 100. I don't know. It's like a bus. It's like a metro. So I think from an outsider perspective, it's just 1 hour away. And I'm sure that when people go to Brisbane, they will visit Sydney as well.
Yeah.
And maybe Melbourne, maybe the Great Barrier Reef.
No, we don't want that. Just Sydney. Thanks. I really liked everything you said. No, of course.
But that's the reason why an outsider perspective is so important.
Yeah, it's a really good point. You're right. We can get very fixated, focused on what matters internally, but actually forget some of that global perspective. I want to go to a couple of questions because we've got some quite specific ones that I think are really interesting. So Mitchell has asked a question. He's working on rebranding of a particular suburb, a centre within Sydney called Chatswood, which is in Willoughby local government area. And Mitchell, I'm assuming you're working for Willoughby local government, so the council. The previous vision for Chatswood, kind of the brand, I suppose, that the story that people have been focused on has really focused on the urban design and the planning changes. It's got a lot of height and a lot of density in that area, and has seen quite a lot of change over recent times. But I mean, I'm intuiting, Mitchell, and please, I apologise that I'm interpreting your question, but probably just the urban design and the built form story isn't enough going forward. What advice might you have for placemakers, for brand people who are thinking about precincts like that need to move beyond just the physical form?
Whoa, that's a difficult question, but it's exactly what we are doing within Arcadis. And when you talk about urbanism and placemaking, it's very important that in the physical space you see really the things you are underlining as very important for the brand. Now, for example, we are busy with placemaking in Rome. I'm sure you know Rome, one of the oldest cities on earth. A lot of over-tourism as well, but they have a beautiful river as well, the Tiber, but they have a lot of pollution there, and they suffer heat stress because of global warming. And now we are busy with the river Tiber. It's about 400 kilometers, and we try to do the same as they did in Paris with the Seine during the Olympic Games. So we try to clean the water so that you can swim in the water. You can swim here in the River Amstel as well, but that you also have, for example, city beaches. The Seine has city beaches. Here in Amsterdam, you don't have to go to the beach 40, 50 kilometers. No, you can go to the River Amstel and you can just swim in your own river. That's really great. I gave the example of the surfing. Well, you have to organize it. You have to create space. You have to create facilities. You have to have entrepreneurs who are running that spot. So placemaking is a multi-layered activity where you have to consider the aspects of the public space, but also what kind of residents do you have? What kind of people do you want to attract? What do they love? And for Amsterdam, it's always so important to stay attractive for the people between 18 and 28 years old, because they are the future. They create the startups and the scale-ups. They don't need big houses. They can ride on their bicycle instead of big cars, So you have to prioritize your target groups as well. What kind of people do you want to attract and facilitate?
That's great.
I
And
hope.
if in doubt, maybe hire Arcadis and ask you to come over. We'd love to see you in person. You can help out with.
Oh yes, I would love to come again. Well, maybe next summer. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, we would love that. And we're trying to work something out. Spoiler alert to everybody. Another question from Miguel. He's just had his first visit to Amsterdam and he fell in love with the city, which is good, but please don't stay there. Come back. I guess you could probably. And he noticed that there was rarely any commercial vacancies in the city and learnt about the Dutch Vacant Property Act. And I apologize in advance, butcher the language, the Leegstaandwet.
de leegstand. De leegstandwet. Wow.
And
Yeah, yeah.
it makes a comparison between the Vacant Property Act in the Netherlands to the New South Wales tax laws that are geared to support property owners, even when they have vacant premises. Which, specifically, his question relates to the negative impact for main streets when you have vacant properties on a high street. Have you got any suggestions of how to get stakeholders on board to encourage activated main streets?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm happy that he fell in love with Amsterdam, because we have some vacancies, but in the city center these days, not too much. We have huge problems with housing. We need to build more houses, and we had some changes in the law as well, and now it's very difficult to hire affordable housing. And for example, for my younger colleagues, it's really a challenge. Because it's very expensive. But when you have empty properties, we also have the opportunity to change the way you use some specific buildings. For example, we had a lot of empty offices, and we changed that into houses. So when you have shopping centers that do not function very well, we always try to come up with new pop-up ideas. We use a lot of pop-up concepts that you try to figure out what works in that specific area for a couple of months instead of renting for a couple of years. So short-term renting. And then you give younger entrepreneurs also opportunities. They do the same in London at King's Cross Station. You can rent spaces there for a month. And when you're an entrepreneur or a designer or even a furniture designer, you show your things in a very cheap buildings, or at least the rent is cheap. And then you sell your stuff on internet. You look what you want to have, and you say, okay, give me 10 of this and 20 of this, and they ship it to your home. So you do not need that many space. You rent it for only 1 month. When you're successful, you continue. And when it's not successful, you try something else. Pop-up, I think that is the new way of improving the quality of street life as well.
It's interesting. I will definitely be learning how to pronounce that word and then going and researching it a little bit more once I'm not doing a poor job of pronouncing a language. I apologize. Thank you for that answer. We are at time. You have a day to get on with. It looks as though I'm assuming I can see just slightly outside your window. It looks like it's still dark in the northern.
It's still dark, yes.
Commiserations. I lived in Oslo. I understand Northern European winters. They are not the funnest times, but I hope you get a little bit of sunlight in your face today. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. To everybody who was able to join us online, thank you for joining. This, as Antonia, my colleague, said, is the first of many global conversations we're going to be having with people about Sydney Global and city branding. And we couldn't think of anybody better to do our first one with than Carolien. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day. Thanks all.